When you see an aquarium filled with beautiful fish, what is the very first thing that you do? Do you knock on the glass? Why? If you know anything about fish, you know this is not good for them. And besides, isn't it enough to simply see something beautiful? Or perhaps we need something beautiful to see us, to validate us, to let us know we are beautiful too. Madam Contest Master, fellow Toastmasters, and to all the fish in the aquarium, how many of you have children? And how many of you have parents? Me too. I was born to two beautiful fish. My mom was a pillar in our church. Everyone looked up to my mom, and my mom looked up to me. Now my dad, he worked for the government, and he was an anti-smoking advocate. A lot of people looked up to my dad, and yet my dad looked at me. Every morning I would run into their bedroom and tap on their glass. All right, I was jumping on their bed. But it was the same thing. I was asking them to validate me, to assure me I was beautiful too. How many of you have ever met a celebrity? And how many of you would like to meet any celebrity just as long as it's not Charlie Sheen? I met a celebrity once, Captain Chesapeake. I can tell you're jealous. Who's Captain Chesapeake? Why, he's just the most important thing to happen to news reporting in Baltimore. Well, I mean, he introduced cartoons, but to an 8-year-old boy, cartoons were the news, right? Right? I had to find out what Scooby and the gang were up to that day. I'll never forget it. I was coming out of an amusement park and I saw him across the parking lot. Captain Chesapeake! Captain Chesapeake! Now you have to understand, the captain was a little older. In fact, he could have probably been the captain on the Titanic. Now he had been in the hot sun all day, and I'm sure all he wanted to do was go home, relax, and maybe enjoy a little captain juice. But he reached into his hot car, picked up his white captain's hat, and said, "Ahoy, crew member!" I went wild! I ran up to him and gave him a big old hug. And then my mom gave him a hug. Which was a little weird. I will never forget how the captain made me feel that day. He made me feel like I was a beautiful fish. Now, how many of you remember your first job? I used to work at a gas station. Half a ton of cigarettes, 35 gallons of Coca-Cola, and 65,000 gallons of highly combustible fluid, and someone left me in charge. Every day I'd wipe down the counters, organize the cigarettes, sorry Dad, and I'd straighten my clip-on tie. And then he walked in. Hey, don't I know you? You're the guy from the 10 o'clock news. Let me ask you something. What's the hardest part about being a celebrity? Oh. So the hardest part about being a celebrity is that people like me feel they have the right to talk to people like you. Wow. You're an ugly fish. Don't worry, I said fish. I mean, couldn't he see what I was doing? I was just tapping on his glass. When you stand where I stand, you borrow the attention of your audience. Never lose sight of that gift. When you are speaking and people are listening, you are a public speaker. But when you're speaking and there's no one listening, you're a crazy person screaming at the wind. How many of you are celebrities? And how many of you forgot to raise your hand, considering we're all Toastmasters and we've all given speeches in front of people at some time? That's good. Cherish your audience. Validate them. Turn it around and make it about them. The next time you get in front of a crowd, be a beautiful fish. Mr. Contest. Oh, yeah.